Okay, we're here with Lanny McCullom in Greenback at the museum. This is January the 8th, 2025. Okay, did you grow up in the Greenback community?
Well, I went to second grade here for the first half of the year, and then I spent the rest of my time growing up in Benfield.
Okay. Now, Benfield, where is that?
Oh, it's about 10 miles up Morganton Road,
Okay,
kind of parallel to Friendsville.
okay. So, where did you go to elementary school?
Well, I started at Lanier, and then I moved to Greenback for the first half of the second grade. In the second half of the second grade, I went back to Lanier, and then in fourth grade, we bought a house and moved to Benfield. So
Okay.
I was there from the rest of my childhood there.
Okay. So you never went to Greenback High School then?
I did not.
Okay.
I played some games on their football field. But
Yeah. So you're a newbie to Greenback then.
yeah, I've only been here 37 years, so I'm still a rookie.
Have they welcomed you yet?
Yeah.
Okay. At Lanier High School, where you went?
No, I went to Friendsville.
Friendsville High
High
School.
school, yeah.
Okay. At Friendsville, did y'all have, you had relatives here in Greenback though, right?
Yes, sir. Our family got here in about 1795, and the big white house down on Morganton Road was on the farm that my grandfather started.
Okay, so I suspect then you visited this area quite a bit then growing up, since it was...
Yeah, I played Little League baseball here as well, and a lot of my aunts and uncles lived down here. My Aunt Becky Stinson lived in Gina. We were there and a lot. And my Aunt Susie Lincolnfelter also lived right across the street from her there. So that was the aunts and uncles that we saw the most.
Okay. For those who are not familiar with the Greenback community, tell us a little bit about the different communities like Gina and some of those, and Morganton.
Well, Morganton was the mother of us all, and it was incorporated about 1813, 1814, and that's where Hugh Kelso built his mill, and that's where Morganton started.
Okay.
We've got records indicating that mill was actually started in the late 1780s. So it was there prior to statehood, at least, during the colonial period. But that gave forth to Greenback in about 1891, actually, when the railroad came, was when the town sprung up here. Mm-hmm. We've got the neighboring communities of Trigonia, which is old, Meadow, which is old. Unisha was about as old as Morganton. It was in the same time period. Unisha is sort of our parent too. That's pretty much, of course, Coy-T is kind of considered a community out there. So the Historical Society, we kind of spread our wings to all those places.
And so the only thing left for some of them are roads by that name, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you were describing Greenback to someone who had never been here, what would you tell them about this Greenback community?
It's pretty much always been about farming so far. We're losing a lot of the big farms now, but being turned into housing developments and quarries, obviously. But the biggest thing about Greenback that strikes me is, from a historical standpoint, is that Morganton being our mother, our livelihood, we're tied to the Little Tennessee River and the Baker's Creek prior to the railroad. When the railroad came, things shifted, transportation shifted, and that was the beginning of Greenback. And therefore, when the railroad left Greenback, it kind of got a lot smaller and less significant at that point.
When did the railroad come through Greenback? When did they build?
It was about 1891.
Okay, okay. And y'all had, well, the depot was right across from here.
It is.
And it's still in operation, but in a different capacity.
Yeah, it stopped being a railroad depot when the last station master died in 1954.
Okay.
So it was not been a depot. It stopped passenger train service then, and it went a little while longer as freight terminal, but it ended.
Well, what do you think makes this Greenback community special? Because you could live anywhere, but you've chosen Greenback.
I feel like humans, as salmon do, have a genetic memory. And I think the thing that brings so many of us to Greenback is the fact that our forefathers were here. And for some reason, we're drawn to the place of our forefathers. Mm-hmm. So probably 75% of Greenback's occupants are family that have been here for a very long time. And we're very interrelated, and that brings some other relationships as well. And then the fact that there was so much farmland has made it a destination for the people from out of state who want to leave the conditions they've been forced to live under and come down here and live free. Mm-hmm. So we're very free here. We don't get a lot of interference from any government entities. It's you can stand on your merit here.
So you have probably beef farming that's left of the farmers. Are there any dairy farms left in Greenback?
Well, the Faboka farm that I live on, which is PBR now, PBK, I'm sorry, is one of the larger ones that's left. That's Inky King, my brother-in-law. And a lot of the big ones have just been sold off. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot left. It's happening daily. The last big one that sold was where the quarry's going in now.
Okay. Now, before you became the historian of Greenback, what did you do for a living?
Well, in 1973, I moved to Ohio and I worked at the Ford Motor Company there for 13 years. I had a variety of jobs. Ended up as a supervisor and got into the paint department, which kind of gave me a new career in the automotive industry when I just couldn't stand working at a factory anymore. Mm-hmm. I came home and worked at various car dealerships, which got me into the paint side of it, got me into some aerospace painting. We did that as well for a while. And most of my career was involved with vehicles of some type.
Okay. So when did you retire from?
I think about 5 years ago.
Okay. Now your wife, Anita, we'll talk about her anyway, even though she's not here. She taught at Greenback.
She did not teach at Greenback.
Oh, she didn't?
No, she went to Greenback for all 12 years for elementary and high school. And they arrived here in 1948 and bought the Alexander farm out here, which is the farm I just discussed. Her family's very interesting. Her family, her grandfather and two sisters and their husbands and a brother, 4 families bought the farm together and worked it together. And they would each do different things. Frank King worked the farm. Cleo Franklin worked at Alcoa to support it. And Kenneth Bird was a teacher. Mm-hmm. And they all worked together and bought that farm. And then when that farm was paid off, they bought each of the others a farm with that same collective mentality until they all had one.
Wow.
It was pretty neat.
That is neat. So where did she teach?
She taught at Pigeon Forge. Elementary,
okay.
Middle school. I'm not elementary, middle school.
Okay.
Which was quite surprising when she got the job in Pigeon Forge. I didn't even know they had schools up there. There's plenty of them.
There's plenty of them.
Yeah.
So you are the president of the Greenback Historical Society.
That's correct.
what is the mission for this group?
To learn, record, and disseminate is our motto. And we want to learn the history of our forefathers and pass it on to people. We do genealogies. We do the 5th grade every year. The ones that want to apply for it, we'll do the children's genealogies. We do family genealogies for people when they request it outside that group. We take care of several cemeteries. We do have an arm is called Grave Concerns that we started, that we maintain and restore and repair headstones, the whole bit, you know, for the cemetery. We just want to pass on people's history to them and get them excited about it and get them to take care of the cemeteries as well.
We'll get into grave concerns here in a little bit. But I've noticed one thing about the Greenback Historical Society. It's special in the fact that there's a bunch of people from Loudon and Lenore City come.
Yeah.
So why do you think there's a draw? What makes this club special?
Well, we have a lot of committees. We used to try to ask for volunteers to do things that needed done, and you wouldn't get a response. But if you would go to say, Ronnie, we need you to be on the committee for the GAP, the Greenback Architectural Project. He said, sure, the people would do it. So we started, when you ask them individually, so we started setting up our committees and staffing them with chair people with enough gumption to make them happen without being micromanaged. And you know, we have over 120 members now, and probably a third of those or more are involved in some of our committees. With outreach would be one. The GAP, the Greenback Architectural Project, is another. Very, very active committees. We have a publishing committee. We do our own books now, and everybody just pitches in and works. But one of the things that draws the out of town people is we try to. If you don't entertain people, they won't come back. So we try to make our meetings entertaining.
Yeah.
And we move them around. We don't always just sit in an auditorium. Sometimes we'll do it at the churchyard or cemetery yard or at the fort or somewhere historic, and people really enjoy that.
Yeah. I'm one of those.
You're one of them.
Last year, the new Greenback Museum was built. I mean, it's a beautiful building. So, why build a new building?
Could you repeat that question?
What was the need for a new museum?
Well, I can't speak for the museum board. We're the historical society, but as a docent here, I can say that they had just outgrown the old building, and the Reagan family had donated this building to the city, and it was repurposed, and through a great community effort was restored. And well, I wouldn't say it's restored. It was actually better shape than it ever was now.
Really? So how was the money raised to do this restoration?
The city supplied an awful lot of it. The Historical Society did a large investment of our funds into it, and just fundraisers. There was a joint fundraiser of the Historical Society and the museum, Music for the Museum, which was held at a mansion over in Coity, Deb Rossi's house. She provided the backdrop for it, and we had a band come down, a big band from Maryville, and folks came out and they had an auction. They raised quite a bit of money with that, but there was an awful lot of money supplied by the city as well.
So what would the message be from you to other towns who do not have museums, but people would like a museum there?
Well, I'm sure everyone would like a museum. It's kind of like everybody wants to see a cemetery cleaned up. But you've got to think beyond that point. And okay, now how are we going to take care of this place? How are we going to fund this place in perpetuity? So I would say that the very first thing that a community should do if they really want to have a museum is to really work on getting some grants. Grant money, maybe matching grants, is pretty available. You'd have to form a 501c3, and so that you're eligible for grants, and that's going to require committing an organization, and then from there. Raise money, pick a historic site that people will get excited about. Maybe I don't know. The answer's not the same for everybody.
Right.
My recommendation would be to try to create an organization that does not rely on another political environment to support them.
Okay.
That would be independent, and that's pretty hard to do. Varnor is struggling right now to keep their museum open. We don't know if it's going to be saved, or we hope that they will find a way to keep it open and keep it, people willing to volunteer to be in it. That's that's the easiest thing to come up with. Then you've got docent training. Then you've got, you would also want to have to consider having enough, if you don't do some changes occasionally into your displays, people would not continue to come to the degree that they.
Now, this museum, do they have a curator and then all volunteers after that, or do they have one particular person that runs the museum?
They have a museum board of several ladies who make all the decisions concerning the museum, and then they have a group of they do all the curation, the displays, the acquisition, all of that, and we don't really have a say-so in any of that. The docents are all volunteers and do it for no pay on their own time. So.
Yeah. Well, let's get into one of your passions now. You mentioned earlier grave concerns. For the people who don't know about the program, tell us really what it is.
When I first retired, I was sitting at my house and the phone rang. I picked it up and it was Frankie Fortman. And he said, "Hey, I've got a cemetery down here in my field. There's a rock out here. It's got your last name on it. You want to come see it?" So I headed out there, sure enough, in a field over here near where the railroad bed used to be was a small cemetery, completely overgrown, knocked over by cattle. It's just a mess. And a piece of a tombstone was laying there and it said McCullom. So that was the beginning. So we cleaned it up and repaired the tombstones. Come to find out that it was the burial place of my great-great-grandfather, Alexander McCullom, who came here, as I stated earlier, in about 1795. He's buried there with his wife, and one of your ancestors, Moses Tuck, is also buried in there.
Great-grandfather.
We've yet to solve that mystery.
Why they're there. Mm-hmm.
So that started it, and we got the next one we found. We just started looking for them, and all along the Little Tennessee River are several small abandoned family cemeteries. This one was on private property and abandoned, but most of them are in the TVA land. We just started. I would go in there and take a month, just since I was retired, didn't have anything I needed to do much. Go in there and clean them up and, restore them, and it just got to be a passion. My wife got retired and got involved with me, and our organization's grown. Now we've got, probably 20 people working with us. Wow. Steve Brookshire's been invaluable to take over a lot of the physical work of it. We go out and we have some that we mow weekly. We have some that we mow biannually. If they're in the woods and we've got the brush all beat back, we don't have to do a lot. So
Yeah.
just keep the weeds out a couple times a year, it's fine. So, and they were in some unusual places, and some were quite hard to find. I had people in all of them. That was the hilarious part, because I never knew. I grew up thinking that we were just poor sharecroppers, and which was the case with my grandfather, and had never owned anything. And come to find out that we had the family had done quite well back in those days, and had 1,000 acres or so, and was related. The thing about Greenback at that time was that there were just 10 or 12 families here, and they were all. If you wanted to marry somebody, it was going to be one of them. So we were related there. As Gerald Thompson says, if our families were here about the time of the Civil War, we're kin.
What Greenback residents who have passed away have left legacies that continue to live on here?
Man, last year was hard. The last 18 months was really hard. We lost Shirley Hall, and then we lost Walter Thompson. He was tremendous in letting you see history through his eyes. We got John Cochran. We've got amazing interviews and writings from both of them. Bobby Anderson's gone now. Carolyn Peck just passed away. There were several more that I didn't know well, but those were the ones that I miss. And in the case of John Cochran, he was born in 1926, so he personally remembered a good portion of the 20th and 21st centuries.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
What was the thing that his family owned something over here, or he worked? What was the historical significance? What role did he play?
John Cochran's family, he's also a Peterson descendant, and John Peterson owned the mill at Morganton.
Yeah,
he had purchased it. I don't know the year, but in about 1936 or 39, it burned down. At that time, John's father had passed to him, Cochran. I think his name was Cecil as well. And it burned down then. They put, Grandpa had always wanted electricity in the mill, and they put a light in it, and it burned down pretty quickly thereafter from the wiring job, I guess.
Now, I didn't know this until it was too late, but he was in World War II, wasn't he?
He was in Korea.
Oh, Korea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well,
he had a brother, an older brother, who was a brigadier general. I don't know what his rank was at the time of the World War II, but I believe his name was Cecil as well, and I think he was in World War II. But John.
Okay, so it was his brother.
John worked at Greenback Motor Company over here, and he had been either drafted or enlisted. I don't know the answer to that, but he went to boot camp. And while he was in boot camp, they found out he was a master mechanic. So they pulled him out of basic training and put him in charge of the motor pool and made him a corporal immediately, so that he could boss around everybody else. And he ran the motor pool at his camp, and that's pretty much all he ever did from that point on, was take care of the vehicles in the Army.
Then he came back and taught school, right?
And he came back, and he did, and he was
Was it
cooperative education teacher. He taught auto mechanics.
Was it Heritage or William Blount?
I think both.
Okay.
I think he created the program at both places.
Okay, I remember him telling me about that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's correct too. His passion was tractors, and he had given the Historical Society 2 tractors, which we auctioned off. I don't know if you remember the auctions, but we sold raffle tickets on them and auctioned off. And the second one that he just, which was last year, about a year ago to now, we auctioned off the second one he gave us, and a young man that was his protege that he had been teaching auto mechanics won it, which was pretty great.
Yeah. Now one of the ladies, I don't remember who it was, but she was one of the big things here at the museum is the book about Greenback, and it has all the town history.
The scrapbooks?
Yes.
Those were created by the Historical Society.
Yeah.
By committee. Colleen Reagan was in on that, and Paul Bailey, Betty Carroll, and the Goddards, I think, as well.
When was that? What was that, in the 90s maybe?
No, I think it was about 2005 or 6, somewhere right around in there.
Okay.
One of the early missions of the Historical Society was to create those scrapbooks.
Boy, those are so impressive, though.
Yeah, they're a wealth. They're a gold mine.
Yeah, I don't know of any other town that has those. Maybe they do, but these are the first ones.
When you say scrapbooks, it doesn't sound impressive. You know, everybody's seen scrapbooks, but these are you know, they're not pasted in there. It's a book.
Yeah, they put it in.
It's a picture book of Greenback. And there's 3 volumes of it, and we're hoping to create a 4th volume as time goes on.
Well, with your own publishing company here, I guess it would be not impossible to do that.
No, we could do that.
Tell me a little bit about the genealogy study that y'all do with 5th graders at Greenback. How did this idea come up?
I think Anita came up with that idea. She was saying, "Man, why don't we just Jimmy Stennett was a member. Hey, I remember how it happened now. Jimmy Stennett was a member. He was a board member, and he said we should have an outreach and we should reach out to the school and do something for the kids." And that idea came up, and we got into it. And I think the first year we had like 20 applicants, which is not much less than half of the students, you know. They'll have 2 classes down there. I don't know the exact numbers, but they'll be in the mid-20s in each class. Maybe 50 kids total in that range. And we would have them apply, and we'd give them a sheet to fill out, and we need to know all their dead relatives that they can come up with, because you can't find anything on living people.
Yeah.
The censuses don't come out for 72 years, so as well, it's rare to see anybody living on a census. So the basis of that was that we needed their deceased family members, and we just do as Anita spends hundreds of hours at her desk working on that. And she's got a committee now of several ladies that help her.
So if one person wants their genealogy done by y'all, how much work is there put in? How many hours you think just on one? I know this is a ballpark figure.
It depends. She's working on one family right now that she spent 3 weeks, 4 or 5 hours a day on just one side of the family. It can be, it's a couple weeks minimum. Can be more. Just depends on how reclusive they were. Some families seem to try to stay under the radar, and some didn't.
So where do you find most of this information?
Well, I wish she was here to answer that. The Ancestry is a great source. The Find a Grave is a great source. We got a great collection of books by local historians like Betty Murr and Miss Montgomery. There's books on the Monroe County that the Vonner Museum put out. There's a lot of those books are invaluable. Tennessee Cousins is another one. First Families of Tennessee. Just about any written source that we can come up with.
And I've seen you down at the Loudon County Courthouse.
That's
searching the deeds and things like that.
Yeah, we. That's for our GAP program mostly that we do the deeds.
the GAP program?
Yeah, the Greenback Architectural Project, that's another big project of the club,
Okay.
in which we take a home that's been here over 100 years. It's sort of like our own version of the National Historic Register,
Right.
but it doesn't have, the only requirements are that it be over 100 years old and be in importance to the community and still in existence.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of things, you know, in our history that aren't here. We want to save what is.
Sure. And I understand those genealogy studies that you've done with the fifth graders. You also have copies here at the museum. Correct?
We do. We do. Not completely everything that we give the families. Obviously, sometimes we find some things that we don't want to provide to the children, so we'll give it in a sealed envelope to the parents. But yeah, it's they're out there. This is one of the things that we publish is each year is a copy of the children's. I think it's their first 2 pages of who they are.
Yeah.
See, that's kind of the thing. You don't know who you are if you don't know where you came from.
Right.
And to know who you are, you got to know where you came from, and you've got to have the dirt and the blood. You got to know it all to know, and that's probably why all these things go hand in hand. To know who your grandparents were, where they were born, where they lived, where they died, who their people were. It's all connected. If you take away one piece, it limits you.
Yeah. Are the kids required to do any of this work?
No,
Okay.
we do that for them, and then at the end of the process, we'll have them write a story, which is a little contest we have with a $50 for each class. We'll give them a prize, and we have them write an essay about. This year, it's oldest person that I know, and they'll interview them and write a little story, and it's those we publish as well, and they're really good sometimes. Kids will say things like, well, I went down to the Greenback drugstore with Grandpa because, you know, Grandpa won't be here forever.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Kids, pretty cool.
Okay, Lanny, I want to thank you very much for all this great information that you're throwing out our way.
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for asking.
And